Hi everybody, this is Michael Hildebrand and I'm your host on the Sleeptrust podcast, where I'm talking about how to gain back trust in your ability to have a superb sleep again.
In this episode, we'll be talking about sleep types and how you can use these to build up your sleep trust. So, for those of our listeners who are new to our podcast, let me explain what we're doing here. We're basically trying to bring light into all kinds of areas that are helpful for us to gain back a better sleep. And we do so by building the core trust and our natural given ability to sleep. Because at some point in the past, we did sleep well, and that's where we want to go again. In our last episode, we digged into the topic of the circadian rhythm, which maps out specific daytimes to specific body functions, meaning that it tells us when we are most likely at daytime to have the highest concentration ability, when certain body functions like blood pressure, body temperature reaches peak and lows. And of course, most important for us here, it also tells us when certain hormones kick in that are relevant for us to sleep. So today, as announced in last week's episode, we will talk about the different sleep types. What are sleep types? Sleep types are a very basic, easy concept which defines if you are somebody that tends to get up very early in the morning and subsequently goes to bed early, or if you are somebody who rather would sleep in the morning a little bit and stay up long hours at night. So with this knowledge, there are basically two types that we define. The first type is the early bird, which would typically get up somewhere around 6 o'clock. This is only an approximate daytime. You could add or subtract an hour, and goes to bed somewhere around 10 o'clock. And the owl, which is the type that sleeps in a little bit, that would typically get up somewhere around 9 o'clock, again, add or subtract an hour, and stay up till somewhere around midnight. So these are the two sleep types. For those of you who want to Google this topic right after listening to the podcast, one additional information: if you Google sleep types, you will also or may also find pages that discuss sleep stages such as light sleep, deep sleep, REM sleep. That's not what we're talking about here. The sleep types we're talking about are also defined as chronotypes. And the second thing is that you may find pages that define even more than two sleep types. And we're not doing so because we believe that to keep it simple is key here. And this is more a indicator of where we are standing right now to work our way through from there, and making it more complex or sophisticated is not really helpful. So one question that I got quite frequently in my coaching sessions when it comes to sleep types was, can I change my sleep type? And I believe we can. And when I say that you can change your sleep type, of course I don't mean that you can change your sleep type, but I mean that you can change your sleeping patterns, because they are dependent on the environment completely. People who get up early, the so-called early birds, get triggered through sunlight and other factors more easily than others. And you can see that the proof of that if you imagine that you were an early bird getting up at 7 a.m. in the morning, and now you're planning a trip to a destination that is 3 time zones ahead. That would mean when you arrive in your new time zone, your 7 a.m. of your inner clock would map to a 10 a.m. now, making you to an owl, getting up late, which will not happen because after 1, 2, 3 days, your body will resync according to the environment and you will get up at 7 a.m. again. And this is proof that you can control your time getting up and going to bed through controlling the environment to a certain degree. According to that, if you are an owl and you want to get up earlier, you have to get daylight into your bedroom earlier. That may work if you just leave your shutters open, or if that is not doing the job, you may want to work with daylight lamps, which you switch on at a certain period of time with an automatic system. That could work. And if you do so, you have to remember that you turn off the daylight at the end of the day too. So it's a little bit more complicated. You'll have to put down your shutters earlier, so your body gets used to the darkness earlier. You should probably not watch too much TV in late hours, because that's a light that affects your time when you want to go to bed too. So that's how it works. And if you are unsure which sleep type you relate to, we've got a little quiz at sleeptrust.eu. We're hosting it right there. You can find it under the links of this episode of the podcast. And it's only going to take you 5 minutes or so, and you're gonna find out which sleep type you are. After we had the chance to talk about the sleep types a couple of minutes, I would like to share with you my thoughts about how this knowledge or information can help us to gain our sleep trusts. Basically, I believe that the more you know about your biorhythm, the more you can take decisions that are in line with what your body needs, and that will really positively affect you. And taking good decisions will build up trust in your decision making. So that's point number 1. The second thing I would really encourage you to do is to do a mapping between your sleep type and the circadian rhythm. You can do so by using the graphics. We're going to share the link from Wikipedia, where you have an example of a circadian rhythm. You can also just Google one. There are certainly tons of them out there on the internet. And have a look at it, a deep look at it for, let's say, 15 to 30 minutes to get a deep understanding of what happens at certain daytimes and night times to your body. And the third thing, and this will really boost your trust, is to make little changes in your life. Don't get extreme here. Just take little changes according to what you learned, what you understood, and that can be going to work earlier or later, if that's a possibility to you, according to your biorhythm. That can be shifting tasks you do at daytime in your job or at home, which would fit other times of the day according to the circadian rhythm. That can also be going to bed on time, as you understand that certain hormones like melatonin, you find that on the circadian rhythm too, kick in at certain times of the day, and it's always good to be in bed, let's say an hour and a half after that happens. So these are all things you can actively do, and please only do things that you really want to do, because if you don't, you're not going to follow through, and that's not good for building up trust. If you find little things that you say, okay, that's helpful, just change them. Take those things, that's my recommendation here. Take those things that will be easy for you because they will make you feel better and will be in line with your biorhythm. And everything that's in line with your biorhythm will be super easy to change and helpful, of course. So that's it for this episode of the Sleep Trust podcast. I really hope you enjoyed it, and we'll hear us next week again if you tune in to the episode about wakey, getting up the right way. Until then, have a superb sleep.
Hey there, and thanks for listening to the Sleep Trust podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you want to get further information on this podcast or material that will help you to gain back your sleep trust, please check out sleeptrust.eu. That's sleeptrust.eu, where you will get lots of information around sleep. And here comes some legal stuff. Everything on this podcast is my opinion only, so do not take it as an advice, as I am not a doctor, nor have I considered your personal situation. If you feel that you need medical advice, please consider getting an appointment at your doctor of trust. If you want to give me any kind of feedback on this podcast, feel feel free to email me at podcast@sleeptrust.eu. I hope you tune in again next week, and until then, have a good sleep.